Hi, how are you doing? This is Pastor Cheryl. I have something very short to read for you tonight. I did film this earlier outside, but the wind was so heavy that it was blowing my book away and you couldn't hear my words. So I'm redoing this. Anyway, we are doing kind of a study on the parallel Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And we are up to Matthew 6:16 through 18, Jesus' words on fasting. Some people still do this today. They still do fasting. I just had an experience with this in seminary. We had some students that could not afford food, and they would get sick. They go to class, and they get sick. They pass out, get dizzy spells, because they had not eaten breakfast, and this would frighten the seminary secretary, and she would go out and get them something to eat. It says, oh goodness, eat something, eat something. And there was always someone who couldn't afford food, and that was always a great concern. But this words on fasting, verse 16, and when you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, and their fasting may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. He says this a lot. They have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by men, by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. In other words, kind of clean up and don't let anybody know what you're doing. I have had a friend who liked to fast. He was extremely heavy, morbidly obese, extreme. And he thought this was a good way to diet. So he'd go, like a 2-day fast, and to him it was a spiritual quest. And he was introduced to me by my friend Scott, who used to mow our lawn down at the meditation garden. Anyway, these two guys would go on this fast together. They would do the Bible study thing together. And Daryl liked to sing. Boy, did he have a voice. He liked to sing. Both of them died about the same time. Heart conditions. Heart attack. The first one to pass away was Daryl. He was absolutely huge. And he came over to the house. And we took a walk together, and he had a hard time breathing. And I said, Daryl, you have a heart condition. I can tell by the way you're breathing. You have a heart problem. And he goes, no, I'm not 60 yet. I'm not 60 yet. Well, he was in his 50s, but it has nothing to do with age. Heart problems have nothing to do with age. And sure enough, about a week or so later, I got a call from his daughter saying she found Daryl dead in his apartment. And I think Scott told me. And anyway, so later on, Scott died. And I did Scott's funeral. He was a church member. His daughter found his certificate of membership was on his coffee table. And anyway, I did his funeral. It was a sad thing. Sad thing. And anyway, both men are dead. Before Scott died, he would call me every night. I think he was just lonely. And he would call me every night. And then he started calling and say, Cheryl, Daryl was here last night. Daryl's been visiting me. I said, oh, okay. Daryl was dead. But he swore Daryl's spirit came to visit him and was touching his back when he was sleeping on his side. And he says, I've had the same experience. And I kind of wonder if Daryl was trying to apologize for um, uh, being really rude. He was a Trumpster, and he had this really bad temper. And he was very supportive of Donald Trump. And anyway, Trump, I'll be glad when Trump is finally gone. Because people worship him. They don't worship God, they worship Trump. I get tired of that stuff. And I really don't like the man. I mean, you tolerate him because, you know, he's our president. And he's kind of crass and backwards, and I just don't like the guy. Anyway, but he would, getting back to my friend Daryl, he was he was very supportive of Trump, and then he after he died, he would come back and visit Scott and I both. It was very strange, and we didn't know why he was coming back to visit. He would just touch our backs and let us know he was there. But I kind of wondered if something was troubling him, something bothering him. We didn't know. And then later on, I did Scott's funeral. But they both like to fast together. And this when I read about fasting, I'm like, yeah, there's some people that still like to do this, and they think it's a good way to purify their system of toxins. And I've read a little bit about that, but I still think, considering the fact that some people pass out when they fast, maybe a juice fast. You know, something in your stomach. Juice, fruit juice. Or some soup. Definitely drink water. And, but I'm not big into it. But because we are going through the Synoptic Gospels, it's here today, it's something to touch on. And so, but leave your comments down below. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and we will go on to treasures. In the next section, treasures in heaven. You know, lay up for yourselves treasures, not on treasures on earth, but treasures in heaven. Think about what those treasures are. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.